So Sam Amick came out today and said that DeMar DeRozan has a preferred trade destination of either the Miami Heat or the bum-ass New York Knicks. Now, is this news? No, not really, because we know anytime there's a star on the trading block, the Miami Heat are always on their list, even though we never seem to get anybody, but that's besides the point. But what makes this rumor kind of different is it actually seems like most fan bases don't want DeMar DeRozan, and that can be seen by the literal top 2 comments under this post from my guy Heat vs. Haters and Knicks Muse. Now, I personally disagree with the general consensus, and let me explain to you why. If you take a look at this board behind me right here, you'll see that yes, 3s are worth more than 2s, but what do you get if you add up a bunch of 2s and then you get a number that is more than 3? I'm pretty sure you get what I'm trying to say. And if you don't, let me put it in terms that's easier to understand. Spacing, give me buckets. And that's exactly what DeMar DeRozan is. Listen, it's no secret that the Heat struggle to score the ball, right? And you can say, hey, Tyler Hero's missed half the season, but truthfully, they weren't that great when he was in the lineup anyways. I mean, for the season, they do rank 20th out of 30 teams in points per game at 112, by the way, which is crazy because I'm sure 10 years ago, 112 would lead the league, but you all know the pace of today's NBA. Bottom line, the Heat are 20th in scoring, and they actually drop all the way down to 25th in scoring when it comes to the fourth quarter. And we know DeMar DeRozan is a bucket. He's only 2 seasons removed from his near MVP caliber season where he averaged 28 points a game. Now, he is 34, so it's possible he's starting to regress because he's only averaging 21 points per game this season, but 21 is still pretty decent, and he's shooting 45% from the field and 36% from 3, which is actually way improved from his career average on 2 attempts a game. So hold on, stop the video. If I miss this shot, I'm asked. If I make it, you subscribe. Let's get it. Cash money, baby. Let's get it. I think if he can continue shooting at that level, maybe the spacing concerns aren't as critical as they seem on paper. But really, the bottom line is you got the best coach in the NBA in Eric Spoelstra. Look what he's been doing with all these undrafted players throughout the years. I think if you get him some actual talent, he will find the best way to use it. But don't get it twisted, even though DeRozan's scoring numbers have dipped a little bit overall, he's still an elite shot maker, specifically in the fourth quarter where we know that the Heat struggle. Last season, DeMar DeRozan was 3rd in points per game in the fourth quarter, and this season he comes in at 11th. If y'all are as frustrated as I am with all these Heat fourth quarter leads, I think having a guy like DeMar DeRozan that can get to his spots whenever he wants and get a pretty clean look, I do think that will help the Heat a ton in the fourth quarter. And you could say, hey, when Tyler Hero comes back, he will help that too. He's a pretty decent fourth quarter scorer, but they were blowing leads when he was healthy this year. You can say that, hey, Jimmy Butler is elite when it comes to the fourth quarter as well. You'd be correct, but mostly in the postseason. We know Jimmy Butler likes to take a lackadaisical approach in the regular season, and I think having DeMar DeRozan will kind of allow for Jimmy Butler to kind of coast until April. Because we know playoff Jimmy is a real thing, right? If you take the last 4 years since he's been with Miami, he's averaging 21 points per game in the regular season, but that jumps up to 25 points per game in the postseason. And on the flip side of that, it's really no secret that DeMar tends to fold come postseason. His numbers in the last 4 years are 24 points per game in the regular season, and that drops down to 21 points per game in the postseason. Now, those numbers are kind of skewed because in the last 4 seasons, DeMar's only made the postseason once. And Jimmy Butler had that year versus the Bucks where we got swept and he averaged 14 points per game and got outscored by Bryn Forbes. But we don't talk about that because the Heat had the shortest offseason ever. And I'm using that as a legitimate excuse. But regardless of the skewed statistics, basically no matter how you look at it, even if you go with their careers, DeMar's numbers typically drop off in the playoffs while Jimmy's rise. And I do think the regular season is kind of important because we saw them in the play-in tournament last year. They were a Max Strus explosion away from missing the playoffs entirely. And I do think those extra games kind of put a toll on their body. We saw come NBA Finals that Jimmy was kind of falling apart, Gabe, Max, Caleb. So if they could have a higher seed locked up in the regular season and not have to go balls to the walls in April going into the playoffs and the play-in tournament, I do think that will kind of help them be more rested and relaxed going into the postseason. So now I want to take a look at DeMar DeRozan's contract, which I also think is very beneficial to the Heat because like Kyle Lowry, he's also on the expiring year of his contract and he's getting paid $28.6 million. Now, this is a trade package that I saw from Evan Sittery of Forbes. Now, I saw a lot of trade packages. I made some of my own, but truthfully, they're all very similar, minus a player or a pick or two. But this is kind of the one that I thought was the most reasonable, maybe the most possible that the Heat would do, and also one that I kind of liked. So in this trade, the Heat are receiving DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso, and they're sending off Kyle Lowry, Nikola Jovic, and a first-round pick. So from the Bulls side of things, it's pretty easy. They're getting Kyle Lowry, who's also an expiring deal, so that money comes off the books in the summer. They're getting Nikola Jovic, who hasn't really got a lot of playing time with Miami, but he is only 19, 20 years old and has shown a ton of potential. So they get a really nice young developmental piece, and they get a first-round pick, which is what, 6 years down the line. So who knows where the Miami Heat will be at that point. And for the Heat, they're of course getting DeMar DeRozan and Alex Caruso, who we all know just screams Heat culture with his tussle, hard grit, and whatever other white boy adjectives there are. But at 2 years, $9 million, he does have one of the best contracts in the entire NBA. So the reason I think this is beneficial for both teams is because DeMar can walk in the offseason. In this case, the Bulls at least get a nice young player in Jovic and a first-round pick, and don't take on any additional money because, of course, Lowry is expiring as well. And for the Miami Heat, they get a guy in DeMar DeRozan who can help them win right now, Alex Caruso, who fits their system perfectly, and all we're giving up is Nikola Jovic, who never plays, and Kyle Lowry, who most Heat fans don't like anyways, including myself. I will say, though, Kyle Lowry's been playing really well of late, which I guess does create a problem for the Miami Heat, because he was our really only true point guard since Drew Smith tore his ACL because of the dumbass Cavs court. So the Heat will really be lacking in that area, particularly because Alex Caruso isn't a true facilitator. He's not even really a great shooter, to be honest. Meanwhile, Kyle Lowry, I'll give it to him. He's like one of the most efficient shooters in the entire league this season. But I think Caruso's at like 36% from three this year. It's possible that's an outlier, but if he can keep that up, those numbers are pretty good. So if the Heat do this trade, they will need to look somewhere for a point guard. Maybe it's a guy like Terry Rozier, who just dropped like 37 and 13 yesterday, but he kind of gets paid a lot of money. Maybe they go ahead and get Tyus Jones from the Washington Wizards, who I think would be perfect on this team. He's the definition of a no-mistake point guard, and when you have a team as talented as Miami would be, that's the type of guy you want. Or maybe they go into the free agency market where Goran Dragic is still there. But I think if the Heat were ever going to sign him, they would have done it already. But there is a lot of options out there, and it is something that would need to be addressed if they do get rid of Kyle Lowry. But that's all I got for this video, so let me know y'all thoughts down below in the comments. I know I'm going to have a lot of Heat fans saying, no, I can't trade Nikola Jovic, because every time I throw him in a trade package, that's what I hear people say. I get you. The potential is there for him to be an amazing player in the NBA. However, I think you only got a couple years left of this prime Jimmy Butler window, and in order to maximize it, I think you got to give up some of the guys like Nikola Jovic. But share your thoughts down below. Make sure to leave a like, of course, and subscribe, because it helps me out a ton. Helps the algorithm push these videos out to everyone so they can see the video. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.
Look, pull up in your city tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.